A reading from the Gospel according to John. Jesus said, "Very truly I tell you, anyone who does not enter the sheepfold by the gate, but climbs in by another way, is a thief and a bandit. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep hear his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought all of them out, he goes ahead of them, and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. They will not follow a stranger, but they will run from him because they do not know the voice of strangers." Jesus used this figure of speech with them, but they did not understand what he was saying to them. So again Jesus said to them, "Very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and bandits, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters by me will be saved, will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief only comes to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life, and they may have it abundantly." This Sunday is called either Sheep Sunday or Shepherd Sunday, and we reflect on Jesus being the shepherd of the sheep, and we being his sheep. And as the pictures you'll see as I'll put on this sermon, that's quite romanticized, Jesus being a shepherd. He always looks clean and neat and respectable, and the sheep all look clean and neat and respectable. And I'm afraid that's not how it was. In almost every culture, shepherds, or those who take care of animals that are free-ranging like shepherds did in Jesus' day, and people still do in various parts of the world, are never seen as respectable or clean. They are really the social outcasts which respectable society looks down on and tends not to want them around because they're out in the wild, unsupervised, without civilized hygiene, showers, bathing, and really it's a job for those who are very much on the edge of society. As many of you know, I spent a long time on the Space Coast in Florida, and one of my parishioners would remember as he'd been a police officer and in his early days in Cocoa Beach, which is now a quite swanky resort close to the space program. In the late 50s, as the space program was just beginning, the Cocoa Beach was a much more smaller resort, sort of just shacks on the beach and bars, not very much there. And at that time, as still, there was a lot of free-range cattle in that part of Florida. Throughout Florida, there's a lot of free-range cattle. And of course, the men who took care of these cattle, I guess you'd call them cowboys in the old sense of the word, rode the range, lived in bunkhouses, and lived a very rough and wild life. And once a month, on the last Friday of the month, they were paid off their salary, and they'd come into town. Now, most of the towns locally and most of the bars and most of the people around did not want them around them, particularly on that night. And there was one bar in Cocoa Beach where they could go. And so they came in and they started their drinking and they started their fighting and they're shooting the guns in the air and all sorts of things went on. And he would talk, and this man would talk about, as a young police officer, all police leave was cancelled in the town, and they used to get the local school bus, and then they'd wait for the fight to start. Then they're going to knock him on the head and put him in the police bus, take him to the local jail, put them there for the night, find them in the morning as they were hungover, put them back in the bus and take them back out to their ranch where they were there cocooned for another month until they came into town once again. He said it really was like you saw in the Wild West movies. And that's how people like shepherds in Jesus' day were seen. So when Jesus describes himself as a shepherd, he's not complimenting himself. He's comparing himself to really the outcast, the lowest, the people who are smelly and unclean, and particularly in Jewish culture, weren't able to maintain the basic requirements of the law. It's very hard to maintain the requirements of the law if you don't have washing facilities, if you don't have a choice in how you eat your food or what food you eat. He's very much living off the land. So Jesus, when he says this, says that he is willing to become the lowliest of the low in the comparison and to care for us, his sheep. And this might seem strange to us, but of course, when Jesus says this, everyone, when he says, compares himself to a shepherd, everyone in his culture would immediately have not had a romantic view, but a very realistic view of who these people were. I'm sure many of his followers were quite shocked when he, the rabbi, he, the teacher, he, the man who they look up to and suspect is very close to God, compares himself with such outcasts and such disreputable people. But that's what Jesus does. And this is a sign of Jesus' love for us, that he loves us so much that he will become like a shepherd, and we will become like the sheep. And that's something we should really reflect on, just to how much God's love comes for us, and how much he's willing to give up to be with us.